this is sort of trite, but you can only save so much, before it's like, what's the point of all this? But you can make as much as you want. There's no cap. So that part's cool. But basic financial freedom for me, and this another thing that I want to mention on for like the people in corporate, was the cost to cover my needs comfortably. I'm not talking about living, in a tent. I'm talking about having my food and travel and fun covered and just coming up with that number. And then whatever could come in either from a side hustle completely passively or fairly passively to cover that amount. And then if I want to do more active investing or kind of have more like responsibilities, then okay, those can also be just because I like the game. Like I work now because I enjoy it. Like I want to build something bigger and I like having an audience and all that stuff. Like that's fun for me. But that's financial freedom. And I think one thing people confuse a lot of times is they think financial freedom means their side hustle replaces their income. That's insane. If you wait till that's going to happen, just stop, because you're going to never do it. But when you buy all your time back, if you get out of your job, you go from having 40 hours a week that you're working on something and then a side hustle that you maybe just became financially free. Watch what happens. Now that I have all my time back, I've added like 5 income streams because now I can hustle in all these other ways and start learning about entrepreneurship and business. But I couldn't do that before because I was dealing with a manager who's asking me to submit a forecast. So that is the difference here. But yes, financial freedom is just having your day-to-day needs covered from other income. It could be stocks, it could be real estate, it could be an online course, it could be anything that just basically covers you. And I look at it, I want it to be money that comes in if I'm asleep, if I have COVID and I'm sick, or if I'm hiking in Montana, I have no phone service like I was for the last, week. So that's my definition of it. And then of course from there you can scale it and you can add people into the business. You could add employees or virtual assistants or systems, and you can get to stage 2 or 3. There's financial independence and financial abundance. And then, there's until you're flying on a private jet, there's always a way to kind of get to another level. But the most basic version of it is just having your needs met. And then you can do that with a lot of creative, like living styles through real estate, but also income that you can generate through real estate.
Sweet. That's great explanation. And I want to talk about what streams you created to actually hit that financial freedom. But first, you mentioned the different levels. I'm curious, do you have a goal as to what level you want to hit next, or anything future with that?
So this was July was the first month just from the properties I own with Airbnb, and then from the property that we're doing like arbitrage for, we hit 20,000 in net revenue or net
Wow.
income. So that's right there and like enough. But for me, I don't necessarily always think about it from like what's my income goals. I like to think about it as like what is my ideal lifestyle and then come up with the number from there. I could probably live comfortably on that, but I actually want to just firm that up and make it more stable in the sense of like that money could go away. People could stop traveling, or it could get more competitive, or there could be regulation. So that's why I want to build up the wholesale business so that if it, let's say, doubles, great. Or if the entire Airbnb business goes away, I could just back end that 20,000 with something else. But, like for me, as long as I can live like very comfortably in multiple areas, I don't have a number, but like, yeah, it would be cool to make over $1 million a year. If I made over 100,000 a month, that's a goal. Like I have maybe now before 30, but I'm not dying to get to that. For me right
Right.
now, it's more about like, I just like doing work that I really enjoy with people that I like, and then working on, like growing that and adding systems to it. And then, like I really want to get back to honestly being good at golf again because I stunk this summer. So like that's another goal of mine. But yeah, 100,000 a month would be a nice goal. It's something to chase after.
Right. Cool. Cool.
Hmm.
So you mentioned that you hit at 27, and it sounds like Airbnb was that fair to say the biggest part of that
Yes.
income? Okay, so let's kind of dive into Airbnb. When did you first start? When did you buy your first Airbnb property?
I bought it probably the worst time ever, quote unquote, which was March 2020. So right when COVID was blowing
Wow.
up. And it was a property that I had been looking for a long time. It's a tree house in North Carolina that I had been like obsessed with because I knew these did really well in North Carolina, but none of them would go for sale. And then when they did, they would go really quick. Like same day, like 20 or 30,000 over, and it's not an expensive property. It's only like 150,000. So what I started doing was just reaching out to the units in that community that were for rent and asking them if they would ever consider selling. And that was how I picked up that first one. A person, an owner who had their property listed for rent. I came in that day and said, "Would you hear out a cash offer?" And they said yes. Or would you hear out an offer? For anyone listening, you could say that too. And they said yes, and we went to contract, and it was completely off market. And that was the first one. And then I remember, like, as it closed, COVID was starting, and everyone's saying Airbnb is gonna be the worst thing ever, and whatever. So we pivoted to furnished monthly rentals, but we could still charge a much higher premium than traditional rents because they were furnished and because we were putting them on Airbnb and Furnish Finder. So we were still making about double the cash flow of a regular, but that was like my first exposure to it and first exposure to like furnished rentals. But from there, it was just like seeing the possibility, and also in my head seeing where I think the future of like tenant leasing is going. And the fact that with Airbnb, the two, or any furnished rentals like Furnish Finder, VRBO, like, or, a direct booking platform, the two biggest problems were solved. And for me, that was finding qualified tenants and two, collecting money. So those two problems are solved with these softwares. Like, say what you want about any of them, but like think about it as a landlord, those are the two biggest headaches.
Right.
So that was like a light bulb moment that even if I was making the exact same, I'd rather use these sites because I don't have to deal with all the garbage. So from there, then we could talk about more, but then just made that the mission that while I still have the job, I was going to do as many of those as I could and buy bigger ones to house more people that could make more money.
Got it. So back in March, that was your first one, and you still were in your W-2, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So jumping into that first one, I guess, where did you get the knowledge to furnish it, to run the numbers? What was your knowledge then at the time, and how did you figure that out?
I was obsessed, and I actually hired him to then be my mentor. Another tip, like pay, for me, if I want to learn something, I want to get around the people that are doing it, and I don't mind paying for it. And I don't mind, or trying to bring them value. Like when I tried to get connected with Joe Fairless, like I made a 10-minute video telling him about all the things I would do for him to cut his grass or whatever, but this guy, like, I couldn't even reach him, but I was like, I'll pay you. But the channel that I really like on YouTube is called Airbnb Automated. Guy by the name of Sean Rakijic, and in his mastermind. If anyone has any questions about that, or like wants a link to it, I could just send that. But anyway, I just watched tons of his content. It made sense, and he was making a lot of money, and he put all the information out there. And then with his like mastermind and like educational stuff, then it just was like how do you set up the listing, how do you furnish it, how do you have templates dealing with guests. Like I liked his approach of systematic instead of like mom and pop, no process type business. So he's very systems oriented. He has over 150 units,
Wow.
and he doesn't even own any. They're all Airbnb arbitrage. So anyway, I didn't mind buying them because, again, back to having the job and wanting to max out the debt, for me, I was always able to generate money that I wanted to put into these. So that was like my biggest learning. And then another great one on YouTube, STRU, a guy, he used to run I think a hedge fund in New York City, and now he's transitioned into like boutique hotels and Airbnbs. Awesome content, puts out tons of stuff. And then from there, then just took action in like analyzing a couple deals every day, learning about the tools. I spent a little bit of money to buy the AirDNA licenses for that state. And again, if anyone has any questions on that, I have a link for it too for AirDNA. But yeah, like that's how I kind of got started. And then just running the numbers and then speaking with other hosts and then finding people that could help me locally and then making offers. So,
Right.
looking back, it was clean. Like anything at the early stages, it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but then you develop a process.
Right. And just quick question on that. Did you join that mastermind program before you bought the rental or after you bought the rental?
I bought it. I joined that group actually after.
Okay, got it.
So I don't remember exactly when, but it was probably like 4 or 5 months after. And I'd already bought two more, and then I was buying one more. And I just felt like I needed to get better at operations.
Got it. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. And let's kind of go systematically for somebody who's just getting started in or someone interested in short-term rentals, Airbnb.
Yep, for sure. And
So,
like, yeah, let's do it step by
so
step.
yeah, so step by step. I guess where do you start? I mean, someone obviously interested. Maybe they hear your podcast or like 20,000 net. I want to do that. Okay. Where do they begin? Thanks for watching that clip from the Real Estate Investing Made Simple podcast. If you want to see the entire interview, go ahead and click the link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to stay tuned for all future episodes.